Okay, so what are we talking about here? We are talking about no Eternals 2, no Captain Marvel 3, no Ant-Man 4, as Disney gets risk averse. This is senior contributor Paul Tassi over on Forbes. And we're going to read into this report a little bit here. I want to give you my thoughts. I also have a video coming out about this where I get like really in detail and kind of talk through why I think people that are negative about this are wrong. And also, I think Daniel kind of couched this report when he first released it to put a negative spin on it. So I'll kind of briefly go over that as well in that video. But check this out. Disney has previously been thought to be scaling back the MCU, which has recently become overloaded with underperforming films in theaters and vastly expensive shows on Disney+. Now, we may be hearing what that will look like in practice. Insider Daniel Richtman is reporting that Eternals 2 is no longer in development, and other potential projects like a third Captain Marvel movie or a fourth Ant-Man movie will not be pursued. If you've been tracking Marvel hit and misses, 3 specifically may not come as a huge shock, as something Marvel did not want to invest in from here. All performed poorly, relatively speaking, among critics and at the box office. The last 3 films in question: Eternals, 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, 400 million worldwide, 402, but yeah, 400. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, 46%. It deserves a 0%. It's the worst movie I've ever seen. On Rotten Tomatoes, 476 worldwide, and The Marvels, 62% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's accurate. That movie is not bad. I dare say The Marvels is better than both of these other movies, to be honest with you. But 206 million worldwide. That is just what it is. Facts, okay? I think The Marvels would probably be the movie alarm bell that set all of this off. Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of things, but that's probably fair. While the 200 million Secret Invasion was probably the show alarm instead. Yeah, I can agree with that. As much as I think both Eternals and The Marvels were underrated given their performance, I can understand why sequels would not be pursued. However, I don't think it's a wise move for Marvel to just ditch Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, and Iman Vellani's Kamala Khan should be given more to do, not less, given how great she is in the role. As for Ant-Man and the Wasp, they can show up in Avengers, I suppose, but Eternals is probably going to have to remain what could have been situation, and we do not expect to see them again. It's also important to consider what era Marvel is moving into here. They're about to kick off several extremely important properties from here, namely the Fantastic Four, and later their take on the X-Men. In addition to keeping the other heroes like Spider-Man and Captain America floating. So in that context, sliding a fourth Ant-Man movie or Eternals 2, which would probably still cost several hundred millions each, seems ill-advised. We've seen this to some extent on Disney+, but perhaps not quite the same lengths yet. She-Hulk does not appear to be getting a second season, as according to its star, Tatiana Maslany, they blew their budget on the pricey but still bad-looking effects. Loki appears to be over. There will certainly not be a Secret Invasion Season 2. Disney has a few questionable shows coming up, like the idea that people will tune into Agatha, a story far away from the mainstream MCU territory based on the villain from WandaVision. Instead, they may focus on street level and probably cheaper content like Echo in the upcoming Daredevil revival. Most of Marvel's slate in the next few years is set, even as dates keep shuffling around. But no, I am not shocked by these 3 movies specifically. They're probably not going to see the light of day. Okay, so it's a good report over there by Paul. And I agree with a lot of what he said. Now, a couple of things going on here. When Daniel reported this, he kind of couched it in a negative way by starting it out by saying due to budget constraints and wanting to spend less, they're going to be taking less risks, and they want to go for sure hits. And he also mentioned in his report that like Kevin wants to do Eternals 2, but Bob Iger is like convinced that it will be a flop. And I saw a ton of people on social media talking about this and saying like, this is the end, or we're doomed, or this is really bad, you know, Bob Iger bad, and that I think, you know, if we try to sort of steel man the argument from that side and the perspective of those fans, I think what they're saying is it's bad to get to a point where the suits and the people that are just executives that lack any kind of creative insight are making these decisions and making restrictions, and that we don't want to live in a world where creativity gets smashed down and there's all this, you know, basically corporate executive type considerations that are driving the ship, okay? And I gotta say, I understand that concern. And I think that coming from that perspective and with that spirit in mind, I could say, sure, I understand that. But I think that the reason it's so triggering that you've got all these fans that want to say Bob Iger bad and like, we want Eternals too, and like all of this shit. There's a number of reasons why this is super triggering for me. I'm going to try not to get like super actually upset about it, right? But I think when you take that attitude of, we don't want suits and executive control of these things, while true, it's ignoring the reality of the situation of the last several years. I also think it ignores the reality that it was corporate mandates that actually made Marvel Studios make more content in the last 2 to 3 years than they made in the 10 years before that. The Disney Plus mandates for certain dates and for pushing all of these movies forward. It is already the case that corporate oversight has affected Marvel. I also think that there's a lot of creative stuff that Kevin and the people there have done that is also just not landing and not working. And the case in point for this, I think, is really Quantumania, because Quantumania reportedly shocked Marvel because they thought they had a hit. They thought they had a hit in a movie that was so poorly edited, I wanted to smash my head into the wall. I'm embarrassed by that movie as a Marvel fan. I'm fucking embarrassed by it. It is a big old pile of steaming shit. So if you just take the attitude of like, this is bad because it's stifling creativity, I would offer you the creativity was already being stifled, and the creative forces themselves at Marvel were fucking this up. They were. I want to show you, too, a video here that really, I've already shown this. I've already shown this on stream, but we're going to show it again. This is a video in which Todd McFarlane is talking about what's happening with comic book movies and why they are kind of sucking it up lately. And in this interview, he gives what I think is an incredible answer. This is something that a lot of us have been saying in the space already here. I think it's at 12:17 here. Let me for you. Okay. So let's listen to this and let's give a little bit of context for what the shit. Check this out.
Chris, which is interesting, and again, we can sort of get off on a side subject. There's been lots written about some of the latest superhero movies not producing as well in terms of gross at the theaters. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? There's no one reason. But from my observation, and I'd be curious to hear yours, one of the things is it appears to me that the world audience is sort of acting like the comic book audience, in that, I get it, we can all sell issue number ones. We can all sell issue number ones, especially if they're wedged between big events or tied to big events or have characters from A-list book. So let's take Captain Marvel as an example. Put her between two Avenger movies, put a bunch of the Avengers in the middle of it. Okay, I can sell that comic book too. Give me an issue number one of Captain Marvel right in the middle of some big epic event that's going on, and I'm going to put all the most popular characters in the middle of it. Yep. I'll sell the heck out of issue number one. The question is, can I sell issue number two with none of that? And issue number three and issue number four. By the way, you can't. And so I don't know. The audience is sort of saying a little bit, I think, that there are we like superhero movies. It's just that some are A and some are Bs. Maybe even some are C pluses, right? And we do the same in comic book, right? I don't know. I don't think you and I would say that the Eternals are the same as or Iron Man, right? We were ranking them, right? And so the audiences, I think, are sort of doing what we've been doing arguably for decades, just ranking them, right? So I don't know, if I was sitting in a Marvel boardroom, I go, you want to make money? Do another Iron Man movie, right? Like not with, and Downey doesn't want to do it. That's fine. You can go get somebody else. Batman been succeeding without, Michael Keaton for 100%. A long time. So he's an A guy to the moviegoer. So play the A guys. I think that they possibly got a bit of a false positive. This is
this part is very important because the counter to this is Guardians, right? And everybody brings that up, but I and Todd believe they got a false positive with Guardians. The success of Guardians in that franchise might have actually been a big issue because they learned the wrong lesson from it. But check this out.
the galaxy, thinking they could take sort of a little bit of an obscure group of characters and turn them all into A's. I think Guardians of the Galaxy was a bit of a false positive, where it didn't work for Shang-Chi or Black Widow or whatever, even to some extent on DC side with Shazam and Black Adam and stuff, right? They're a tier down in our world that you and I live in, and now I think the audience is starting to say, "Hey, we're gonna start to rank these characters."
No, I agree with you, and I think that, I mean, we could talk about this all day long and break this down, but I definitely feel like, you know, they had this situation in the mid 2000s where they didn't have Spider-Man, they didn't have X-Men, they didn't have their A guys, so they took their B guys and they moved them to A guys. But I think the problem that we've seen is now they're trying to take C characters, and they're skipping a level, right?
This is so on point with Chris, because like he's like, yeah, that's true. And also, to take it further, look at the difference between the Infinity Saga and what you currently have. They're just taking D's and C's, like, and there's no A's. I mean, there's some A's, but there's like no Avengers. You know what I mean? Like, just, it's weird. The programming's off, and bringing in the C's and trying to make them A's is weird.
Trying to move them up to A guys, and they're not putting them in that B category. And I think that's an issue I think we saw with like Spider-Man. Like, they just introduced Spider-Man in Civil War. We'd already had 2 Spider-Man movies. And then they tried to take like characters that are like 10 years old in the comic books, which is baby, right? They're like babies in the comic books. And they're trying to introduce them without like giving them origins. Like, we don't know their origins. Like, we all know how Spider-Man got started. We all know how Batman got started. You don't have to see those origins play out on the big screen exactly. But I think there's a lot of characters that they've tried to introduce and throw in at the audience that they really don't know who those people are. Yeah.
There's also expectations of everything. Everything in business, you have to have
realistic expectations. That's very nice, man. 100 bones? Holy shit.
An Ant-Man movie, it's going to make $400 million.
Did you win another race or something?
Going, oh my God. But now, because they've had so much success, they have an Ant-Man movie comes out globally, makes $400 million, and they're going, oh man. Right? And you're going, what? What do you, like 15 years?
Yeah, that's a good point too. The issue though is Quantumania is designed to be a huge blockbuster. They spent hundreds and hundreds of millions. It's so VFX heavy. You bringing the new Avengers villain in, like they were talking about it like it was Endgame and shit. So there's a little bit of a weird disconnect there. But just to kind of like give my kind of final thoughts on this whole conversation, because again, I'm trying to be chill. I'm trying to understand where some of these other fans are at, and it's not like there aren't fans out there that just love Eternals, Miss Marvel, and all that. I'm sure they exist. The problem is they exist at a very small level, right? They just don't exist at a level where they're going to be able to, you know, make these things make business sense to do them. So I have a big video coming out about this, but let me TLDR it for you. If you look at the Infinity Saga, you've got like a lot of A-level characters and story that was told through A-level things. You go Civil War into Age of Ultron, then kind of Spider-Man No Way Home deals with this too, but really then you have Infinity War and Endgame. So that stretch of movies. And then you have this brilliant thing of programming. So you have relatively larger characters like your Doc Strange, your Spider-Man, your Guardians, which again I think was a false positive. And you have them kind of wedged in between the Captain Americas and Avengers. Right? So you've got like big stuff, B-level stuff that's wedged in between, and it just worked. You had like this beautiful like programming of like highs and lows, and kind of like what he said, smashing Captain Marvel in between Infinity War and Endgame. It's $1 billion movie because it's felt like it was really important to them. But if you look at Phase 4 and into Phase 5, what you have instead is you've got Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, and then a bunch of like really low level shit. And there's not a balance of programming there. There's also not strong enough titles. Like no Avengers in Phase 4, I think was a mistake. And I think you needed an Avengers movie because you can wrap story through that. So I think that what you have going on now out of Phase 4 in the beginning of Phase 5 is like an even worse version of what they did in the Infinity Saga, and it's just not working. The other thing I want to say here is it's not like you can't continue the stories of these characters. And in fact, I think the Infinity Saga did this a lot better, where they would introduce characters that in other movies before you even get to their solo films, right? And I think that's smart because you leverage the big names and the big franchises to introduce the other characters, right? So I think moving forward, it's a no-brainer to go away from some of these C and D level characters and franchises. You can still involve them and leverage the other more popular characters. But at the end of the day, this and what Marvel is currently doing right now is solving two big problems. Number one, the success problem, because, bro, you can't just be having underperforming movies if you're spending at the level that they are spending on. It's fiscally irresponsible to spend $200, $300, $400 million on the Marvels. That is just a very silly decision. So no way, in no way, shape, or form should they move forward with that franchise. But you can involve those characters just in the next Avengers movie, or in the next Captain America movie, or in the World War Hulk movie, or something that actually has a big draw. The other problem this solves is the fact that you have way too many characters, way too much going on. Phase 4 introduced a million fucking things. None of it feels connected. It needs to feel like it's a living, breathing world. We need to follow these characters through shared events. They have to have history together to have big payoffs when the crunch comes with Kang or whoever, right? So this will solve two of the biggest fucking problems that Marvel currently has right now. And it's just super triggering to me to watch a whole bunch of these people out there like try to sort of Monday quarterback, or try to like say like, well, this is just this corporatism. It's such bullshit. I love these movies. And it's like, look, I'm sure you fucking do. But you know what? I think Marvel loves winning, and they need to get back to winning, and this is a brilliant way to do so. So this is a W for me, and I think you'll still get Eternals in some cosmic shit, maybe Celestial movie, maybe in an X-Men verse. I think you'll still have a lot of the characters from the Marvels in some of the 616 Avengers stuff, maybe even Shang-Chi 2, and then into Avengers 5 and into Avengers 6. So it's not as bad as some people are making it out to be. It's a smart decision. That's all I really got to say on it. And I have another video coming out about this too, but there you go. What do you think, chat?